This episode of Juice Guru Radio is brought to you by Try Best, making healthy living easy.
Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. Discover what the magic and power of juicing can do for you. And now, your host, best-selling author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Juice Fasting, Steve Prusak.
Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome today. We've got J.L. Fields. She's the author of Vegan Meal Prep, other books like Vegan Pressure Cooking and The Vegan Air Fryer, co-author of the Main Street Vegan Academy Cookbook. She's going to be here on the show showing us all about vegan meal prep right after this. So grab a tea or some water or even some juice. We'll be back right after this with J.L. Fields.
Did you know you can make a great living in the hottest new business trend today? The Juice Guru Certification Program is the world's first online course to give you the knowledge and marketing skills to excel as a juicing coach and start making money in no time. Find out more at juicecoachtraining.com.
Juice Guru Radio.
Welcome back to the show. Like I said, we got J.L. Fields, founder and culinary director of the Colorado Springs Vegan Cooking Academy. She's a master vegan lifestyle coach and educator, a food for life instructor, chef instructor in the culinary program from the University of New Mexico, personal chef, career coach, so many things, and the new book, Vegan Meal Prep. We're going to talk all about that and all the other amazing things she's up to. Let's welcome to the show right now, J.L. Fields.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's good to talk to you again.
Thanks, J.L. Well, you're not keeping busy. You better find something to kill the time.
Right? I think you probably could say the same thing.
I hear you. I speak to you because I get it. But thank you again. And do you have the book over there? I'm really excited about this new one, Vegan Meal Prep.
Yes.
Let's take a look at that.
My latest book. I'm super excited. It came out in December, and it's been a lot of fun. The response has been great.
Yeah. So what led to this one?
Well, so books are an interesting thing. Sometimes you have a concept and you put a proposal together and you get it out there. And then other times there are what is called author acquisition, when publishers are looking for content. And so they start to look for the person that they think can write the content they're looking for. And I feel like this was like a little bit of both of that. I've been wanting to do a book for quite some time, kind of around what I called batch cooking or bulk cooking, but really it was just kind of like, I always sort of referred to it as being vegan in the real world. Like, how do you just get stuff together so you can eat really quick meals and not feel like you're in the kitchen all the time? And so a publisher, Rockridge, approached me and they said, we see you do a lot of bulk and batch cooking, and we're wondering if you're interested in putting together a title like this. And what I loved about writing this book was that meal prep isn't like an art and a science now. People have YouTube channels devoted to it. And I had never really done official meal prep. I had just cooked lots of food in advance and put them together as meals. So I got to learn how to meal prep while I wrote about meal prepping, and it's completely changed the way I eat now, which is a blast because I feel like I have so much diversity now in what I'm eating.
Well, let's talk a little about the philosophy behind it, how it works, how it's what the benefits are.
Sure. So meal prepping, sort of the simplest way to look at it is that you are actually preparing food during a certain period of time on a particular day, and the outcome is going to be that you have meals ready to roll, not just a big batch of brown rice in a bowl and a big batch of like balsamic black beans in a bowl, and you just reheat them and eat them all week, but you have portioned out your food into bowls, containers, mason jars, portioned out, ready to roll, so that it's totally specific to you. So your calorie intake might be very different than mine, depending on which one of us is working out or doing different kinds of things, or male or female or whatever that is. You get to portion out exactly what you want to eat and have it ready to roll in your refrigerator or in your freezer. And so now with meal prepping, you can spend somewhere between 90 minutes and maybe 2 hours following sort of this is what I need to eat this week. But when you're done in your refrigerator, lined up in your refrigerator, you have a line of jars that have all your mason jar salads ready. You have smaller jars, pint jars that have all your overnight oats ready. And then you have glass containers or BPA-free containers that are filled with a bean, a grain, and a vegetable. And so every morning when you get up, it's just grabbing something and reheating it, or grabbing something and eating it, or grabbing something and putting it in your backpack on your way to your office or to school. So it keeps you it gives you all the food you wish you would eat all the time, right? People are like, I want to cook more, but I just don't feel like I have the time. Meal prep is asking you to think about how many meals you need next week prepped and ready to roll, and then laying out a way for you to do it and cook them up in about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then you're done for the week.
Wow. So this really is a time saver, isn't it?
Absolutely. That is why people meal prep. People have the best of intentions. They want to eat whole foods. They want to make every meal from scratch. And that's just not how our lives, work, right? And so if you just plan ahead, and I actually have some tips on that planning ahead, and it might surprise people what I think, but if you just plan ahead and carve out that amount of time, you're going to accomplish so much in a short period of time. And you really are going to stay on track with how you want to eat, with home cooked food, and you can come home exhausted at the end of the day and have a beautiful warm meal.
So is it all in how we schedule this that we're going to save the most time?
Yeah, and so I want to talk about scheduling. So I teach a lot of cooking classes, and I teach a lot of meal prep classes. And the thing that I always tell my students is, I know that you want to be aspirational, that now you are into this. You've got your meal prep book. You're like, yes, I'm going to make 21 meals ready for every single meal next week. And that's not realistic, because what you should really do when you start meal prepping is actually take your calendar out and look at what next week's schedule is. Are you traveling on Friday? Then you don't need the food on Friday. You're going to be at an airport. Do you have a work meeting on Wednesday night and you're going to a restaurant? You don't need to worry about dinner on Wednesday night. Are you going to the gym 2 early mornings and all you need are smoothies? Work that into your plan. Once you look at your calendar and your family's calendar, it changes from I need 21 meals next week to I think if I make 6 things but double up 2 of them, I'll have enough meals for my partner and I to get us through the meals we actually need prepared. So just by doing that, you're saving time as far as how much food you need to cook during your meal prepping session. But more importantly, you're saving money because you're not overbuying at the grocery store by being too aspirational and not pragmatic. And you're not wasting food, because so many times new meal preppers will cook so much food and they're like, I'm going to eat every meal and I'm going to make all of this. And at the end of the week, they're throwing food away that they didn't eat because they forgot about the lunch meeting with their boss. They forgot that they were going to be at the airport on Friday. So the art is to know what you need next week. And then you say, this weekend, I'm preparing 3 lunches, 2 dinners, and 2 breakfasts. Once you do that, you pick out the recipes you want and you get into the kitchen, and there's a good chance you could be done within an hour to 90 minutes.
Now, does this include sauces and things that we'd want to put on the food to flavor them up? Are we preparing all that in advance too?
Yeah, absolutely. And in my book, I have a section on sauces and dips, and I talk about how to store them, because that's the other thing that I think people get challenged by, particularly if they're new vegans. Because, the interesting thing about this book, definitely vegans are interested in a book on vegan meal prepping. But who else is interested? People who are interested in exploring plant-based cuisine, and they're like, okay, maybe this is a way that I'll do this. They might not know how quickly beans should be eaten up. Any one of us who've been eating beans for a long time know what happens when that one leftover can of beans gets in the back of the refrigerator and you find it 10 days later and you're like, oh my gosh, beans. So I, in the book, talk about this is how long this will last in the refrigerator. This is how long it will last if it's countertop, like a kale chip, or this is how to freeze it and how long it will last. Because I think that's the other thing that makes people nervous about meal prepping is, what if I make this food and then I just don't know when I'm supposed to eat it or how I'm supposed to store it?
That's great. And that's really helpful too, because there's nothing worse than when you make the food, it goes bad, and then it becomes discouraging and you don't even want to go back and do it again.
Exactly. You feel defeated.
Yeah, totally been there. So this is really exciting. I want to talk I want to get back into some of the tips and tricks and things that you have. Again, we're going to talk about the new book here, and it's the Vegan Meal Prep. It's available on Amazon, bookstores worldwide. Anywhere else our listeners can get a copy of that book?
Yeah, it's at Barnes & Noble. It's at probably your local library, truthfully. And if it's not at your library or not at your local bookstore, because it's published, traditionally published, all you have to do is call either your library or your bookstore, and they can get it in for you. But I think it's even on Target and Walmart.com, believe it or not.
Okay, and we'll have a link to it under the show notes here at juicegururadio.com, so you can always grab your copy there. Coming up, some more tips and things like that. But I want to hear more about your journey of morphing from a non-cook to a professional chef to a cookbook author and cooking instructor in just 7 years, because we have people in our program that are certified juice therapists and trying to figure this all out. How did you evolve so quickly in all this?
I guess it is quick, right? But having lived it, it doesn't feel.
I know 7 years is like nothing. But I mean, you weren't even a cook.
No, I wasn't a cook. So I was going to make a joke about my gray hair. That's why I'm gray, but I was actually gray before that. So believe it or not, so this month is actually my 9-year vegan anniversary. And I say that only because it really is kind of the contextual part of this journey that I've been over the last several years. So I had been vegetarian for 8 years. And when I went vegetarian, I ran an international foundation to end violence against women and girls. And so I was gone all the time, and my husband did the cooking. And I distinctly recall when I went vegetarian, it was in Africa, in Kenya. And there was an incident with a goat, and a goat was served for dinner. And that was the last time I had meat. And I called my husband at the airport. I was on my way to South Africa, and I'm like, I'm a vegetarian. And he's like, I'm on it. Don't worry about it. So I get home from my travels, and he's, making me tofu and pasta. And for 8 years, he continued to be the cook in the family, even though he wasn't vegetarian. He cooked vegetarian for me. But 8 years after that, and at that point I was 45, I went vegan. And it was fairly anticlimactic compared to the goat. It was just really, I had gone on this sort of 16-day cleanse of no wheat, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, and dairy. And I was like, well, that was easy. I thought being vegan would be hard. So I just went vegan. And I came home and pronounced to my husband, I'm vegan. And he said, you are on your own. I have no idea what to do for you. So I was 45 years old. And I knew how to cook before I got married, but I'm from the Midwest. It was sort of like pot roast on Sunday and make it last for a week because I was a single woman. And, so I'm like, I was not a fancy cook. And then I didn't have to cook for a long time. So basically at the age of 45, I found myself back in the kitchen, a brand new vegan, and I was trying to figure all of this out. So just what happened, I guess, because this is the day and age we're in now, is I started a blog at about the exact same time because I thought, well, I'm just going to try to keep track of how I progress. What do I learn? Maybe somebody else will learn something because so many of the other vegan food bloggers were young women, and I felt like I had a different perspective. And I just fell in love with all of it. I fell in love with, even though I went vegetarian because of the goat, the truth of the matter is, I don't know how, but I hadn't really made the vegan sort of ethical connection. But I did after I went vegan. So I fell in love with the ethics of veganism. I fell in love with the food. I fell in love with cooking it. And I fell in love with writing it. And after a couple of years of blogging, I just found myself now, I was like turning 47, and I was like, I don't want to do my day job. I wish this were my day job. Can't I just do all the vegan things all the time? And then I did that crazy thing that people tell you should never do, and everybody should probably try to do it once. If they're able, I say that from a place of privilege. I understand. And I walked away from my job, and I took a leap of faith and came up with a model where I could try to do consulting from the field in which I'd worked for 25 years, which was in the nonprofit sector and higher education, and carve out just enough work to pay some bills so that I could spend the majority of my time building what I hoped would become a vegan culinary education practice. And that's...
Yeah, well, that's a good tip. I mean, you didn't just jump out. You still were able to bring in some income while building this out.
You have to, because even though I'm 100% acknowledging privilege, I want to make clear that I lived in New York at the time, and my husband and I still had to bring money in. So what we did, and I'll just offer this as another practical step, is when I didn't just jump into this, what I did was I looked at our current home personal finances and looked at what would be missing when I walked away from my job. And it would be we'd be missing a lot. I had a 6-figure job. But I also looked at all the things we were spending money on that we didn't need to. And so I started to slash things like, television subscriptions and too many newspapers being left at our door and not being read, and cleaning lady, got rid of all those things and looked at it, and I knew how much money I had to bring in, and I'll just be completely honest, I knew I needed to bring in $60,000. So I have an idea to start my own business, and I need to keep my family whole, make $60,000. That wasn't going to happen with a vegan dream. So I needed to find a way to make that nugget happen while I built my skills and expertise and credibility as a vegan educator. And so, so I just, used my network. reached out to people from college, which for me was many years prior, and just tried to find some gigs where I could do what I knew how to do, strategic management for a nonprofit, come in and do some fundraising, consulting, and earn what I needed to do so that I could build this, so that I was hoping my scales of justice would change to the point where my income was completely from doing my vegan work. And that happened 4 years ago. And so I've been doing this for 7 years. It took about 4 years to get to the point where it was 100% vegan work. And it's going well.
Well, passion pays, you follow your dream, and it really does, and I mean, our stories are so similar because I had the six-figure job. I was a therapist. I had summers off. I had vacations like you wouldn't believe, and walked away from it all so I could speak my truth and live my passion, and pulled out my 401k, and it was sink or swim living in LA. And it paid off. But, there are the nights at the beginning I was like, I don't know about this, but I think it's really about following the dream and the passion. So thank you for the work that you do. And I'd love to get back to some of these tips, because this is only going to make life easier for all of us.
Right.
So you, in researching this book, you actually, and we'll talk about some of the other books at the end here, but by doing the research for this book, that's how you started developing these skills for this too?
Yeah, I mean, it really was. It was like, I know how to batch cook. I bulk cook all the time, but I never took the time to put it into a meal. And then I understood why, and this sounds so stereotypical, but like my husband, didn't like leftovers. And so I would be that planner on the weekend and say, I'm going to have food for us ready for the week. And he'd eat it up on Monday, maybe on Tuesday. And by Wednesday, he was like, I am over this mushroom rice and these balsamic black beans. I'm over them. And so he would then like make a sandwich or, have a day of pizza or something. So as I was researching it, I of course was testing recipes and then testing out preps to see what's a good portion size, what's a good way to store this. And as I was doing it, we had all these ready to go meals in the refrigerator, and we were both eating them during the week, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is the game changer. And so I applaud anybody who does that batch cooking and that bulk cooking on the weekend. And then I'm just trying to encourage people to say, I think you can even step it up a notch now by really turning these into beautiful meals in a container that's ready to go, so that you don't, you can have some diversity. And I'll give you an example this weekend, because the only way I do my meal prepping on the weekends, even still. And I'm working on a new book, making other recipes that have nothing to do with it, but I'm still doing this a little bit less. But one of the things I made this weekend was a chunky red lentil stew. It's almost like dal, right? Because it's not soupy. It's thick. So yesterday when I had it for lunch, I put it over raw arugula and reheated that so that it just lightly wilted the arugula. And we know that arugula just adds this sort of peppery zippiness to a bite, particularly if it's not overcooked. So now you have a little different texture. You have a slight crunch of a raw vegetable that's been lightly wilted with this really hearty Indian-style red lentil stew. So I had that for lunch yesterday. Today, I heated up the lentil stew, but I just served it over a baked sweet potato with, I just diced up some fresh avocado. The two meals tasted completely different, but the base was that red lentil stew. So it's not boring when you could just do these little finesses to, maybe serve it with scallions one night and over a corn tortilla. So there are lots of ways to sort of keep it fresh and exciting too. But yeah, I learned how to do it while I was writing the book, and it has changed everything for us, and particularly my husband, who is now really into eating all of these preps.
Yeah, and for the people that are eating out too much, this is a great solution, because that food in the restaurant, I'm here in LA, and it's over salted, over oily. I mean, it's vegan food, but it's not necessarily healthy. And here we can control our portions and making healthy food, right?
Yeah, and saving money, because I think for a lot of people, the other thing is simply if the food isn't ready, you get home and you might have the best intentions to press some tofu and whip together a quick Mongolian tofu recipe. But the reality is, if you're exhausted, it might be much easier to get on an app and have Postmates or Grubhub bring some food over, or to go out. But when it's right in front of you and ready to roll, it's so much easier not to do it, and you're going to save a lot of money. And that's where we've been saving the money, because we like to dine out. I'm a vegan dining critic for the Gazette here in Colorado Springs. So, dining out is part of what I have to do. So I want to have some control over it.
Well, that's a fun job.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So is it part of this scheduling? Is it that we're doing our shopping on a certain day and then we're making the food on another day, or is it the same day? How has that scheduling been working for you?
Well, that's a really good question. And I'm going to give some of my lazy tips, but I'll tell you, just for people who are interested in how it's sort of laid out in the book, is that there are a bunch of recipes that are easily prepped. And that's at the second half of the book. There's 70 recipes. The first half of the book are 8 sections that are 8 different meal preps. So so that's when you can kind of look at it and go, you know what I really need this week? I need lunches and snacks. Then that might be the meal prep you go for. But like one of them is called Beautiful Bowls. And so it's going to be a risotto, a warm vegetable salad, a quinoa salad, artichoke and chickpea curry, some parmi kale pesto, and some minty fruit salad. What I do when I put those together is try to use a lot of the same vegetables, a lot of the same protein, or a lot of the same grains, so that you're buying fewer things at the store and you're making things stretch. So you're stretching your dollar. And then I walk you through the grocery list. Here's what's probably in your pantry. Check that first. And then you're going to discover you may not have to buy as much at the store as you think. And then I even tell you what you are going to need to use. You're going to need 2 baking sheets. You're going to need parchment paper. You're going to need a pizza cutter. And so it's really spelling it out for you. And then it takes each of the recipes and tells you when to start which step of each of those recipes, so that you're not making one recipe for 30 minutes and then going to the next one for 40 minutes. You're doing them all at the same time, going from step 1 here to step 4 here, back to step 2, so that after 90 minutes or 2 hours, everything is done. So knowing that's the process, then you just have to figure out your grocery shopping. But I am not going to lie. Now, I will say, because I am in the culinary arts, I teach cooking classes, I cook for private clients, I hate the grocery store. I hate the grocery store. And I realize that's ironic for someone who's in the food world. But so I'm obsessed with Instacart. So what I do is I go through all of my recipes that I want to make my list, and then I go onto Instacart and I put them all in my grocery store, and no specialty required here for vegan eating. It's King Soopers here in Colorado, which is a Kroger. I can get everything I need. And so I know that I want to cook from 1 to 3 on a Saturday afternoon. I have my groceries delivered between 11 and 12. And by the end of the day on Saturday, I'm done. I have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I start eating like a queen on Monday.
That's smart. What a time saver too, huh?
Yeah. And it's, I realize not everybody can do that, but it is kind of fun to play around with. But the other thing is, take a look at your shopping list and maybe go to the store on Friday night after work. So at any point that you want to start on Saturday, you're ready to roll.
Well, this sounds like a great way to I can't wait to get this book and share it with my wife, because we've been really struggling with trying to figure this out. This is a do-it-yourself restaurant right in your refrigerator, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's funny, what I try to tell people about this book is I try to manage expectations. This is not the cookbook to buy if you're having 12 people over on Saturday night for a fancy dinner. That's not this book. This book is vegan food on the table as quickly as possible, healthy, save some money, but I try to do some culinary coaching within, meaning I try to talk about flavor profiles. I talk about umami and how to bring out a meaty savoriness so that someone in the home that isn't eating plant-based might be more enticed to eat it because you've added this umami element of savory. And so I am trying to kind of coach people into flexing their culinary muscles while keeping it easy.
Love it. And I'm serious. I just actually texted my wife the link to the book. It's on Amazon. The name of the book is Vegan Meal Prep, Ready to Go Meals and Snacks for Healthy Plant-Based Eating. I love that it's a time saver. I love that it's, good to go. We can have fresh food right in our refrigerator. And if you're just starting out wanting to eat more plant foods, well, isn't this a great option? Wouldn't you say, JL?
Absolutely. I think it's a great primer to get into it, because I think so many people who are new to plant-based eating feel like it's exotic because it's different. And I think once you open this up and you look at it, you're like, oh, I could do that. And that's basically how I approach anything when I'm talking to people about how to cook. It's just like, oh, I could do that. And I think it is a really great entree for people who are new to it. Now,
what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch? I know you're on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram at JL Goes Vegan. So that's at JL Goes Vegan. But what's the best way to follow you besides that? Is that the best way?
Well, truthfully, I have a website, JL Goes Vegan, and I am now what I refer to as the world's worst blogger, because I decided I did not want to monetize my website and have ads and have to chase down all the dairy and chicken ads that were popping up on my website. So I got rid of the ads. And don't post on my website as much other than my cooking classes. I'm really on Instagram. I have found the engagement on Instagram amazing. I'm on every single day in my kitchen doing stories, showing you what I'm having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm basically doing mini coaching on Instagram. But Facebook, I have a lot of Facebook groups around my different cookbooks so that people can ask questions and learn how to use the appliances that I use. So I'm far more on Facebook and Instagram than anywhere else.
Now, we did talk about some of the other books. Did you want to mention any of the other books or to go along with this, or anything to say in closing or final words of advice?
Well, what I would say, most people seem to know me from my book, Vegan Pressure Cooking, and a lot of people have their Instant Pots or from the Vegan Air Fryer. And I did make a point in Vegan Meal Prep that when it was appropriate to use a different method, like with an Instant Pot or an air fryer, I mentioned that, but that's a side. So you do not need any appliances to cook these meals, but if you do have these appliances, you're going to be able to cook these meals even faster.
Love it. JL Fields right here on Juice Guru Radio. JL, thank you for coming back and sharing this much needed message with the world. Thank you. We're really excited to help you get it out, the word about it.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm Steve Przek, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. Find out more about us at juicegururadio.com. Until next time, get your juice on.